Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. So let's continue where we left off here. All right, so on this section we have these items being saved normally, quite all right, as they should. Now if we go to our database to see where this data is saved, it's right here. This is the courses meta table. All right, so let's see here. We have, okay, so first item, second, third, and fourth, which corresponds to these items here in the database. Now, a problem we're going to face is if I try to save this now, because we already only have the insert code for now, we're just going to add more rows. So I don't want this. And another thing we're facing here is, let's say I delete all of these. Let's say for now, let me try to delete this one. Okay, so there's a minimum of 4, and here what's the minimum? Let's try and delete. Okay, minimum of 1 item. Okay, so I made a mistake here. I should have added more items, right? But I can actually add more items right here in the database. All I need to do is follow this format. So add the ID will be automatic here. I just need to add the course ID and then make sure I have the correct data type. So let me add one more for prerequisites here. So I'm just going to copy this data here. I can add some other data here, but all I need to make sure is that there's prerequisites here and there's course ID of 5. So let's just go into the insert section here and let's try course ID 5 and data type prerequisites. Then I'll just type some extra data like this. So I'm just adding one extra item here that I can later remove. Let's go back to the browse. Okay, so there it is. So if I now refresh, I should have one more item here. So let me refresh. And there we go. We have an extra item here from the database. So you see how to easily add more items here. Now, the reason I did this is because I want to delete one of these. Now, before I go ahead here, let me just mute the insert. So this one is in the admin controller and around line number 207, where we have the course meta insert right there. I will mute that piece of code, and because I don't want to do any more inserts. Now, if I do get back here and delete this item, this is allowed to delete, but then I save the data. Oh, also, you know, the issue is when I delete, I can't actually save because that doesn't count as making things dirty. So let's fix that real quick. So in order to fix this, let's go back to our views and let's go to the course. Now let's go to the admin section and let's go to course views. Let's come down here to where we have our JavaScript code. All right. So down to JavaScript. All I need to do is say dirty is equal to true, and that should set things in motion. So let's see what happens when we edit. Let me go up here first. Let me see what function we call when to set things as dirty. We come to, actually don't, there should be an on-click listener here or on input. So let me just search for that. I'll just say on input. Okay, so something changed. So that's the div on input. So we call the something changed right there. Okay, so I'm going to just copy that. Something changed. Let's find out what the event does. Do we even use the E? No, we don't. So we can do without the E there, actually. So let me just remove it so that we don't need to always add it, but maybe I can leave it for now. It doesn't really matter. So dirty is equal to tab disable save button is equal to true. Shouldn't this be like enable or something? Anyway, regardless, this is what we call. So I'm just going to grab this, go to the delete key. So in order to find out what happens when I delete is I'll go to these course edit tabs. This is the intended learners tab, and this is where all the add new buttons are. Actually, the delete buttons are back in the courses tab, right in the, let's go down here to the JavaScript. So there's add new, there's also, there should be delete. Where is this? Handle result. As the code gets more complex, it's harder to find things, but let's see here. There's add new. Then there's delete here. So ID is equal to delete. I'm looking for the on-click listener. Wait, how did I fix this? So this is the problem for taking so long to do these things. Now I cannot figure out. Okay, so tab action, that should be the one. You cannot delete this item. Great. So it means we are here. Now, if we do remove something, it means we got to this point. So we did remove something. So just after removing something, let's put this, something changed. Now, since this expects an E, we can just put that same E that we got from there and put it there, because it doesn't really do anything inside the function. We just want to make things dirty so that the save button can actually be active once we delete something. So let me refresh this for a second, and then let's delete this. If I cancel the delete, it shouldn't change the button, which is good. But if I delete and it actually works, there it is now, it's active. So that's good. So now if I do save, what happened? Shouldn't I get a, let's go to the console, see if we got any errors. Okay, nothing. Okay, so that's done, saved. Okay, so now that things are saved, if I refresh, you see that nothing has changed at all. So what we need now to do is this. We can delete everything and then add them anew. So let me show you that right now, which is the easy way to do it. So let's go to the admin. So we get right here where we insert. So what I'm going to do is, if not empty, there's some new metadata to be saved, right? Even if there's none to be saved, what we need to do is delete everything first. So we'll grab this course meta and then read all data from here and then delete all of it. So we don't even have to read all, we can just say anything that has course ID 05, just disable it, or instead of disable, just delete it. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do is just say, let's use a query instead of using the delete, because the delete can only handle one ID. We put one ID there when we are deleting something. It expects an ID, but in order for us to do that, we need to read all the data, loop through it, and then delete one at a time, which may not be so good. So instead, what I'm going to do is, where is this? Okay, so we are from here, we grab the data, but before we do all of this, or even right here, doesn't really matter, we can do it from here, delete all records. Okay, so I'm going to grab the class, so I'll call it course meta, that's what it's called there, and do this and run a query. So the query is simple. We're just going to, now instead of running query, we could do something like this and say delete, but then we need to provide an ID. Okay, so we could do it this way if we are lazy instead. We don't want to type a query. we can just say course meta and then grab some items. So I can call this one old underscore records. Probably this is a better, more cleaner method, easier to read. So say course meta, and let's say where, we use the where clause. Okay, so there is update, there is where. I hope I'm not confusing myself here. Let me just confirm in the... Okay, great. So that's good. So we use the where clause, and we want to look for where the course ID. So we just put course ID is equal to 5. Now we know it's 5, but we should use variables instead because it won't always be 5. But let's just grab, where do we get the ID? So course ID is right here. It's in form of ID. So let me grab that and let me put it right there. Okay, so if we have some old records, then we're going to loop through them. So if old records like this, then let's look through them and delete one at a time. So here we will need an ID. Let me grab old records here. Let's do an for each loop. So say for each old records, and here I'll just call this one record. Save that. Let me move up. Okay, let's remove that, or just leave it. It doesn't seem to want to go. So here I'll just say record and the current ID. Okay, so whatever record it is, the ID, delete that. So that will just delete all records and then rewrite them again by inserting. So you will see that if I click save right now, we won't really see a difference, right? But what we should notice is the IDs over here. So we are starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Then let me refresh this and let me hit save. So I'll just type something here just to activate the save button, and then I'll hit save. Then let's come back here and see what happened. Okay, so now if you notice, the records are exactly the same, but look now, they start from 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, right? Let me try and save again. So I'll just edit something and save again. Let's go back here. So you see now the records end at 15. If I click browse, they start at 16, 17. So what's really going on is that the first records are being deleted. Okay, so the first records are deleted, and then more are added. The same data is added. Now, this is not a big problem if you have few records like this and there's only one course ID. But now imagine where you have hundreds of courses, right? So the metadata for a specific course may be starting from one number to another. So those records will be deleted and then added to the end of the table. So which means all the indices there will have to refresh. Okay, so that's a little bit of a problem, because if a lot of people are deleting and editing their courses, that's going to be a lot of records being deleted in the table and re-added again. So a better method to use here is where we, instead of deleting the records, we reuse the existing ones. Let's say, for example, because the problem that's there here right now is if I delete all these guys, let's say even this one, some extra data, right? If I delete for now, remove that. So come back here. You see there's some extra data here, right? But if I now save this time, save, come back here, you will notice that some extra data is missing. Yeah, that's good, because now it corresponds to this. This is why we delete the old data and just add what is existing. That way we avoid the issue of trying to figure out which record is which, etc., etc. So it works pretty well. So like this, it works just fine. The only problem is that we are deleting records so often every time we click save, and that's not good, especially when the records are too many. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to run a method where instead of doing this, we will look for records that already exist and then override the values, because the rest of it should remain the same. The ID, the course ID, the data type, and the value. Okay, so those things remain the same. So we'll look for everything with the course ID similar, and then add the data, replace this data. We can even replace the data type and value until everything fits. Now, in case they're not enough to replace the new one, let's say, for example, I added more records here when editing. So it means I would need more rows than those that are currently available for that course. So all we do is once those that exist run out, when we start editing them, we just add new records down here. And then if it happens that I delete some here, so which means now there are fewer records than they were before, what will happen is we'll just disable all of the records first of all, and then after disabling them, then we start replacing one by one until we have enough. Then we will leave the rest of them disabled. Okay, so in order to do a disabling, we just have to, so the first thing we should do, instead of deleting like we are doing here, we should disable. So instead of looping through the disable, we can just run one disable and say disable everything that has a course ID of 5 or the current course ID, disable it. So let's try that. So instead of looping through here, we grab the old records. In fact, this whole thing, we can leave it out for now. We will use this code, but not for deleting. We'll use it for replacing data. But for now, let's move it out of the way. So instead of delete all records, we'll just say disable all records from this course ID, right? So let's do that. Okay, so how do we disable all of them? Simple, we run this one query and use the update instead. So I'm just going to say update, right? So we need the record ID, that's fine, and then we need the array of what we're updating. So in this case, we want to update the disabled column with 1, meaning they are now disabled. So here we'll say update like that. Okay, great. So to know that it has worked, let's remove this course thingy here, the insert, and let's test it out. So I'll try to edit some and then just hit save. Let's see what has happened. If I come back here, you find that, oops, disabled should have been 1 here. So what's going on? Update record ID. Oh, that's because record is unknown. Sorry about that. We just need it to be ID. Record was coming from the loop here, so I guess that's why. So back here again, let's refresh. Oh, there was an error even there. I didn't see one. So let's save that. If I come back, check, you see that everything is disabled or not? Nope, it is not. Oh, why not? Disabled must be 1. Okay, let me just make sure that course meta has a disabled okay, so disabled is part of the editable columns, so why isn't it working? So update ID disabled. This should work. Okay, but it isn't. So let's inspect any errors down here. Nothing. Okay, let me come back to courses view. Let's see if we can check handle result, intended learners, load inputs after a save. Get meta, save. I wanted to see what the result is so that we can see if there are any errors. So come back here, upload course image. No, that's not what we're looking for. Save content, this one right here. So send data, the object type is save. So let's look for that. Save content. If data type is save, then instead of let's do here console.log result. That way we can see what's going on. So let me refresh and let me try to save again. So one edit here. Let me clear my console, and then with that edit we can now save. Okay, so everything seems to be working just fine. Doesn't seem to be any errors whatsoever, which is cool. Sometimes it's better to leave that on so that you can always check quickly what's going on once you get your results. So why haven't we updated anything here? This is not cool. Okay, update. Let me go back to my, what's this, model. This is inside the core model.php. Let's see if update is in its right mind. Remove unwanted columns, update set. Yeah, this looks pretty solid to me. Yep, that looks solid. So courses meta, that's the table. So what's going on? Why do I not get the update? ID disabled. Is this the correct spelling? 1. This is weird. Let me refresh. Let's try one more time. Let me refresh on the table. Yep. Course ID 5. Update 1. Okay, so what's going on? Let me try one last time. If it doesn't work, I'll come back. I'll debug it on my own and see if things will work out then. So let's save. Let's come back. No, still not working. Anyway, what we could do instead is, if this doesn't seem to work as intended, what I can do is, let me copy this. Since this part had worked just fine, let's try that. Let me mute that. And instead of delete, let's duplicate this instead. Let's put the update. My mouse is terrible. Okay, let me mute that. Let's use the update instead. And then let's say record ID. This is not very efficient using loops like this. And then disabled 1. Let's try that, shall we? Okay, so back here, let's do one more time and save. Let's see if that worked. Yeah, that seemed to work. Everything is disabled, so yeah, let's use it that way, I guess. What else can we do? If that's what it is accepted, then let's do it that way. I wonder why this didn't work when it's exactly the same thing. Oh, wait a minute. I think I know why. Sorry, the update looks for an ID. Here, this ID belongs to the course ID. So this is why it couldn't find any ID of 5. That's why it didn't update. Okay, so I get it. I get why it doesn't work. All right, so then we need to do it this way instead. Okay, so let me remove this delete thingy. Let me remove that as well. We'll just keep it like that. Okay, so for now, this is what we're going to do. We disable this stuff. And then, now that we've disabled this, we won't want to insert directly. So here we'll have a choice whether to insert or update. So what I'll do is I'll do this instead. So data type, course ID, Of course, if we are updating the course ID, should not be updatable. Right. No, course ID can remain. Okay, so what we will do is this. Here, instead of just inserting data, we have two options. We can insert or we can update. So I want us to be able to update the old records. So from old records here, we grab these. I want to get old IDs from the old records so that I know which IDs they are. So what I'll do is I'll just say old underscore IDs like this is equal to, let me set this to an empty array so that it's available even though old records may return an empty set. So what I'll do here, I'll get again old IDs is equal to, now I want to use a function called array column here. There we go. So the input is the array, which is this one. And what array column does is it gets a particular column from an array and sets it in here. So this should be old. And the column key is the ID. So what I'm trying to do here is just trying to get all the IDs from this result set of old records. So when it reads all these rows, but I just want to isolate the IDs themselves so I can look through them and update them. And then once I run out of those, then since everything is disabled, once I run out of them, then I can insert some new records. So we'll get old IDs and loop through, actually, we are looping through these records here now, which is fine. Then what we'll do is we'll use array pop from here. So I'm just going to copy this. And then each time through the loop, we're going to check if old IDs exist. So I'm just going to say if count, right, old IDs is greater than 0, which means there's some record there, right? So if it's greater than 0, then let's update instead. But if it's less than 0, let's insert a new record because then we've run out of old IDs to update. So this is how it will work. Now, what do we do here with the update? So let's see here, old IDs. So we want to grab an old ID that we'll use in the update here. So what do? We're going to say, I'll just say my old ID. I don't even know if let's put underscore is equal to. Now we're going to use a function called array pop. I want to get the suggestion. Yeah, there we go. So array pop, what it does is, let's put old IDs like that, is it gets an item at the, wait, is it array pop or array? I think it's at the end of the array. It doesn't really matter in this case. It could be at the end and at the beginning of an array, and then removes it from the array and then pushes it into whatever you are putting it there. So the array will become less and less. So the data will be reducing in the array while we are pushing the result in here. So we're getting an item one at a time from these old IDs. Once we run out, then we can insert. So here we'll use this old ID as the ID to update like so. And this is all. This should work as intended. So let me come back here. If everything works well, these IDs should not change. So they start at 25 to 28 and they should be enabled. Also, as we are rewriting old IDs here, we should also put the disabled as 0. Okay, so that's already there, which is good. That's fine. So let's try it and see. So here I'm going to close this, refresh. Let's try and click edit here. And then now I'm going to hit save. So coming back, see we have 25 to 28. Let me click, but the disabled should be zeros for us to know that we actually edited these rows. So let me click. And as you can see, it's working. Everything is still at 25 to 28. That's cool. But let me add more rows. So let's see here. Or let me try and delete one row. Or let me just add one more. So I'll say one more item here, right? Let me save. So I've added one more item. Let's see if we get one more item here. And as you can see, we did get one more item. But let me delete the same one more item I added, delete it, and let's save. Save. So come back here and click. What do you know? We didn't delete that item. We just edited it to disable it. But wait, why did things move back and forth? That was weird. Third item, fourth item. Okay, let me try. I think I saw something here. Let's add one more item. Let's do this again. And let me save. So we shouldn't get an extra because there's already an extra that's disabled. We're going to use that, right? We won't add any more rows because there's one slot that we have here. So click. And as you can see, we didn't add one more item. So there we go. And things worked very well. Now let's try and refresh and see if everything will fall into place. And everything is in the right place. Let's add one more item. Let's add it from here instead. Another item. Right, let's let me add more items. And let's save. Okay, and let's refresh, see if everything is back in order. It is. And let's come back here. It should add a few more rows this time. There we go. Very cool. But now if I come back and let me delete these same items, delete this one, maybe this one, delete this one. So there are less items now than we had in the beginning. So let me save. What happens? It shouldn't add extra rows. So let me click and you see it has just disabled the ones we don't need. Now, if I enable them this time, let me put a 0. Come back here. Let me put a 0. 0. If I come back here, then they will appear one more time because now they are enabled. And as you can see, they are appearing. And one interesting thing is that if I now truncate this table, let me go to operations and delete everything in there. Let's go back here. It will add some new records when I hit save. So let me edit and save. And they will start from 1, which will be nice. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very cool. So hopefully you've understood what's going on here. We are trying to avoid deleting and adding new records recklessly. What we want to do is to just continue the IDs so that at any point we check our records, we're going to find a steady flow of these IDs. This way we avoid the issue of having to rewrite our indices in our database. That's a big issue when your table is going to be huge. So your database will appreciate that you don't have to make it rewrite its indices all the time. Right, so hopefully that was understood what we're trying to do here. So this is all about saving, editing this data. So let me try here and edit this data. You see the second item, let's just add with extra text like so, and then I'm going to save. If I now refresh, you will find that that is still saved. And when we go here, it didn't delete, but just updated. Let's see. And there we go. Cool. Okay, very nice. Okay, so with this thing we've created here, we can simply copy it over to another table because now everything is editable. We can add, delete, move things around. Also, I want you to notice that if I move things around, let me shift these guys. You see, first item is here, second item is at the top. Let's see if this will maintain when I save. So by shifting those, I didn't make things dirty, right? So let's fix that real quick as well. Let me come back to what had I? There's a function I had added. So let's see here. Where is that function? Okay, so it's down here. Let's see where we're asking. Yeah, something changed, right? So let me copy this. Let's see these guys where we move up or move down, right? So move up or move down. If we do move, then something did change. Is there an E? Yes, there is an E there, so that's fine. That's gonna work. Let's do the same thing here. So if we move things around, something did change so that when we save, it should save as well. There's also, what else? Dragging, when we start dragging things and they move around. So item to drag this, and then the drop is when we actually drag an item. So let's put something changed there as well. Okay, so back here, let's refresh. That way, when I move, see this is disabled. If I move this up, I can now save. So save, great. And if I refresh, you see that the item is still on top. Very good. And if you look here, these guys will have swapped in the table. So if I click, you see they have swapped. Very nice. Okay, so same thing here. I can move this up. Now fourth item is at the top. Save. And let's refresh. And you find it's still there. Let's try a drag. So let's drag more items to the top. And still we can save. So save. Let's refresh. And more items is at the top. All right, awesomeness. And now that we're done with this section, we can go to the next tab.